How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 77. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining and listening to another movie discussion. On this week's episode, we're taking things back a couple months. I'm actually reviewing a film that didn't come out recently in the month of July, rather came out earlier in 2024, and that film is Challengers, directed by Luca Guadagnino. And I was really pumped to see this movie. I didn't watch it when it first came out, only because I feel like there was a couple of other films that I was more interested in watching. And so 4th of July just came up, had a couple of days off, had some free time on my hands, and I thought, why not just try to catch up on a film that people have been talking and really raving and hyping up, and it's Challengers. So I thought, let's go ahead and give it a shot. I'm a big tennis fan, so I thought that there was a little bit of tennis involved when I saw the trailers. So let's go ahead and dive into some of my overall thoughts of Challengers. I want to say that after I checked it out, ended up renting it on Amazon, it was a fun time watching this movie. It really surprised me. It caught me off guard. I remember seeing trailers when I would see a couple of other movies earlier on in 2024, and it was kind of framed, at least in my mind, it looked like it was going to be a young adult type of a story, a love triangle. It was going to be very sexy, very raunchy. At least that's kind of how I saw it, and I remember it from the trailers. And although there is those kind of moments, it's actually not revolving around that. It's actually revolving more around the drama and the interactions that these three characters within Challengers end up facing off against. You have the character Tashi, who is played by Zendaya. She's basically a rising star in this movie, and then she gets injured, and then she ends up becoming a coach. And she ends up coaching the character Art. Art is actually played by Mike Faist. And they end up having a good relationship, coach and player, but they're also married, and they have a child as well. And then you have the third character in the story, which is Patrick, played by Josh O'Connor. And what we end up realizing as we go through the story is that Art and Patrick used to be great friends, and Patrick actually used to be the ex-boyfriend of Tashi. And so again, you see these complex relationships gotta get played out. Just a general synopsis about the movie, it revolves around these three individuals, Art, Tashi, and Patrick. You see their entire relationship over a 13-year span. There's a lot of flashbacks, a lot of time jumps that you get to see. But what's most important is what their relationships are like as they grow up, as they get to experience a little bit more of their lives and where they are. So basically the story starts with Patrick and Art facing each other in a Challengers Circuit tennis tournament. And again, at the beginning of the movie, it's framed as like, okay, who are these individuals? Do they know each other? But by the end of it, they're still in that same Challengers final, facing off against each other. And you see Tashi watching them both, and just you didn't know where it's going to go. And so again, you just see that entire 13-year relationship you just explored throughout the movie. Just a lot of engaging stuff. I really enjoyed it. A couple of the things that I really wanted to call out about the watching Challengers was the way that every character got a chance to shine. Tashi had great moments where she would kind of talk, and you'd see her love for the game of tennis, how she would explain what her life was about, especially before she had her injury. So Zendaya had a lot of great stuff in this one. You also had Mike Faist as Art. Again, he was more of the character that got to admire and wanted to fall in love with Tashi. And then you had Patrick, who was on the other side of the spectrum, where he was very free-spirited. He did whatever he wanted to. He didn't really care about making it as a career for tennis. He just wanted to have fun and just do whatever he felt like in the moment. So I feel like all three characters got their moments in this film, and their chemistry is what made this film that much more enjoyable and that much more believable for me. So great stuff that I got to witness within the film. Other thing that I want to call out there is also the amount of tennis that was shown. What I was very surprised was like, okay, are they really going to show a lot of tennis content? Are they going to film a lot of them playing tennis, or is it just scenes here and there? But no, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the entire story takes place in a tennis match. You're seeing Patrick and Art face each other set by set, and after a specific point ends up being completed, it kind of jumps to another part of their history within the relationship of these three characters. So again, very surprised at how much tennis content was in this film and how they just showed and shot and just filmed all these different types of stuff that just highlight how great tennis is. But really enjoyed that aspect of it because I was expecting, okay, maybe there might be just very little scenes and then the rest will just be kind of drama between these characters. But no, tennis is infused in this film throughout. And as a tennis fan, I really enjoyed that. So overall, Challengers was such a great movie that I got to check out. Let's dive into some of the pros and cons that I had about this movie. First pro that I want to call out is the score that was played throughout this movie. It was always upbeat, high energy. I freaking loved it. As you can probably tell, just again, the type of energy that I come out with these podcasts, the way that I talk is always so fast. I'm always loving music that has that same type of energy, very high, keeping you engaged. And that's exactly what the score was able to do in this film. Every time there was a specific type of slow motion shot, anytime these characters, like there was no dialogue, there was just characters looking at each other or doing something on the tennis court, you would just hear this high energy, upbeat type of a track just come on. And again, it just keeps you focused on the scenes, makes you pay attention to those details as the scenes are shot in slow motion. It was just, I loved every single part of the music that was added to this film. And I think I can honestly say, probably the best score so far of this year. Again, maybe just recency bias from the films that I just got to watch right now over the weekend. But out of all the movies that I've gotten to check out in 2024, this one was just so engaging, so upbeat, a lot of energy, and it just kept you focused on what was going on with these characters when there was no dialogue occurring. Second pro for me is the flashbacks that were occurring throughout this movie. Like I explained in my overall thoughts, the entire film is taking over a span of 13 years between Tashi, Art, and Patrick. And the way that they jump back to explain what these characters are like is just top notch. It is beautifully done. You first start off with getting to know, as of present time, how Art and Patrick are, as well as Tashi. And at the beginning of the film, you see Art as this guy that, again, he's just having some issues with confidence. He wants to win another Grand Slam to complete his career Grand Slam in tennis. And you could just see that, again, he's just having trouble with getting some confidence, getting some victories. And he's relying a lot on Tashi, who is his coach, as well as his wife. And then you see Patrick on the other side, where at the beginning of the film, he's basically very low on money. He's struggling. He's trying to get some type of victory in these challenger circuits just to keep on living. And when you start the movie off that way, you're kind of, okay, well, you're rooting for both guys, but more so for Patrick. And then as these flashbacks start happening, you start to see the real characters and how they really are and what type of actions they've done that have led them to this point. And so love it when a movie can show me those types of flashbacks, make me kind of flip-flop between, okay, which character is in the right, or who should I really be attaching or rooting for? And when it makes me kind of contemplate and think about that throughout the film, it's doing its job, at least for me. Also want to call out the costume design and the way that they made the characters look younger as they did those flashbacks. Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor, again, they already look young, but the way that they would do their hair, the way that they would, wear certain types of clothing, it just, again, they did a great job when they flashback 13 years, and they showed, again, when they were in that junior circuit of tennis, how young they looked. And so really well done by the costume design team for Challengers. Last pro for me that I want to call out is the different tennis scenes that they were able to shoot. Again, I called it out a little bit on my overall thoughts. I was very caught off guard with how much tennis was infused into this movie. And again, not all shots were perfect, but I think they did justice in regards to showing how exciting the sport of tennis can be. I also really appreciated how, again, the story, not only does it involve playing tennis, but I love that it also showed maybe the struggles that certain tennis players might go through, especially if you're struggling with confidence like Art was, or for characters like Patrick, who didn't want to be coached. He wanted to just play on his own terms. He didn't want to be controlled or told, hey, this is the structure that you have to live with. But then look what happens. He ends up struggling to get any money. He has to include himself in different challenger circuits, even though he has a big name. And so you just see, again, the real struggle that some tennis players who are not superstars, who might not be the best in the sport, they might be maybe the 100th or 200th or 300th best player in the world. They struggle on a day-to-day basis with either mental hurdles or just different hurdles around their life to kind of maintain a way of living. So really enjoyed, again, the way that they shot those tennis scenes, as well as showing the life of a tennis player and how hard it can be. All right, moving into some of the cons that I had about this movie. Not too many, and not anything that would kind of deter me from recommending this film, but one of the bigger cons that I had was towards the end of the film, Patrick and Art face off. There ended up being a lot of slow motion used in these final shots to a point where it dragged on a little too long for me. That's just something that I felt when I watched it. Now, throughout the movie, there's a lot of slow motion shots, but I feel like they were paced very well. In the final couple scenes, though, it just felt like minutes were going by with just straight slow motion. And that upbeat, high energy music is playing, which is always good, but it just felt like they dragged on too much with the slow motion, and too much slow motion was used for some of the shots that I felt like, I know that it was trying to emphasize a specific point or emphasize the tension between Art and Patrick, but it just, again, felt like it was dragging. I wish it would have kind of just cut a little bit of that slow motion and just sped it up a little bit better to still explain what is going on between Art and Patrick in this match. Only other minor con that I had was the ending as well. It doesn't feel like there's a true resolution. It kind of just shows that the love of the sport can obviously change different types of elements and relationships, especially when two people are feuding. But I wish there was a little bit more resolution between these three characters. It's not even left like open-ended. It just kind of feels like it ends with them playing out this match, and you don't even see the result of that match. So I wish there was a little more resolution, at least for my headcanon. But again, that's just a very minor nitpick. Now let's go ahead and move on to some of my favorite moments, favorite performances, and favorite shots or stills of the film. I'll start off with my favorite performance. This, I will say, is probably the hardest one that I've had to kind of decide on of all the films that I've checked out in 2024. Usually there's always one person in my head that I'm thinking of. In this one, it's very tough because three actors just killed it. Zendaya put on a great performance as Tashi. You had Josh O'Connor playing Patrick, again, this guy that is just reckless and just doesn't care about the rules, is just trying to do what he wants to do and what he feels like doing on a particular day. Then you had Art, who was played by Mike Faist. Again, he just played more of that straight shooter. He admired and loved Tashi so much. So again, every character got their time to shine within the film. And I can honestly say that every day that I think about the film, I feel like I've been, flip-flopping on who my favorite performance is. So again, just for today, from what I feel like and from what I remember of the movie, I'm going to have to choose Josh O'Connor as my favorite performance. Again, he played the character Patrick, and I just really enjoyed his free spirit and how, again, reckless he was. He didn't care about going to school as much as Tashi and Art did. Tashi and Art kind of were thinking about, hey, we love tennis, but we have to also think about something else besides just hitting a ball with a racket. And Patrick didn't really care about that. Patrick just wanted to do what he felt was right. If it meant playing tennis today, all right, that's what I'm meant to do. And then if my career ends, then, well, okay, maybe I'll find something else to do. But he also had some great conversations and interactions with Zendaya's character, Tashi. And I really enjoyed those one-on-ones. You could tell that Tashi wanted there to be structure in Patrick's life, and Patrick refused the coaching. He did not want to be coached. He did not want to be told what to do on the tennis court. And he didn't really want to talk about tennis outside of the courts. Tashi always wanted to revolve her life around tennis. And so again, you just see those dynamics and the contrast between the two characters, and it just ends up having great interactions throughout the movie. But again, most of the funny parts are from Patrick. Just the funny lines that he says, the facial expressions that he has when he's talking to Art or Tashi. So really good stuff, but I would give my favorite performance to Josh O'Connor as Patrick. Now, moving on to my favorite moment of the movie. I just kind of called it out. I teased it a little bit, but anytime there was a conversation between Tashi and Patrick, like I mentioned, both characters are very much on opposite sides of the spectrum. You have the free spirit of Patrick, and then you have the character of Tashi, who is much more structured. She knows exactly what she wants, and she's basically obsessed with the sport of tennis. And so whenever you get these two characters in a scene, again, you get to see just these arguments that are done very well by Zendaya and Josh O'Connor. Again, it feels very realistic. It feels like an actual conversation that you're hearing, either from a conversation that you have had in your life or that you may have overheard or people have told you. It just feels like a real conversation when these two characters spoke. And so, again, I wanted to call out anytime Tashi and Patrick were in a conversation, just one-on-one, talking about the relationship, talking about tennis, talking about, again, not being coached or wanting to be coached. I just loved those types of interactions. So those are my favorite moments in the movie. Finally, I want to talk about my favorite shot or still of the film. I actually want to shout out the team that created this film and shot it. Great job with being able to get these shots that were almost like under the tennis court. Again, I would love to see a behind the scenes on how they did that. I'm assuming that they may have put, Patrick and Art on this kind of glass or mirror, or not a mirror, but more of a glass to show from under the tennis court. So you get to see them bouncing the ball. You get to see them kind of hitting the ball back and forth. And there was a specific shot where they're both on the opposite ends of the tennis court. And they're, again, you just see them playing tennis and you're seeing it from under the tennis court. And so I really enjoyed how they filmed and shot that. And that is actually my favorite shot of the movie, just seeing the tennis court from under. So really good stuff. Now, if I had to decide, is Challengers timeless? This has been, again, a question that has been in my mind for the hours since I've watched this movie, just kind of going back and forth. I can say that this film has the potential to be a timeless movie. I definitely would be open to rewatching it. As of right now, it is not a timeless movie, but I can totally see this one just flip-flopping, just like I've been flip-flopping with who my favorite performance was. And kind of leaning into why I would consider this as a potential to be a timeless movie is the fact that it involves so much tennis. It talks about the sport and at least shows the sport in a very interesting way, but also the character interactions, the chemistry between Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Face. That is what I feel would get me back into watching this movie, because all of their interactions throughout the movie are just so authentic, so real, that I freaking loved it. It was just, again, so compelling to see these characters go through 13 years of their relationship, the back and forth, who's going to end up with who, who's going to backstab who, just a lot of good stuff. But again, to me, it definitely has the potential to be a timeless movie. More importantly, though, what do you guys think? Is this a timeless movie for you? Is Challengers that one movie where you're like, heck yeah, I'm going to watch this over and over and over again? Again, one other thing that popped into my mind, at least make it a timeless movie, is the music. Again, I called it out. The score is just so well done. They placed it in perfect spots in different scenes. So again, great job to the team that developed Challengers. It was a great movie. But let me know down below if you would consider Challengers a timeless film. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you stayed all the way through, I appreciate you. Really fun stuff to kind of go through these new films. I know that's not a new movie that just came out in theaters, but I thought it was a perfect opportunity to catch up on a film that people have been talking and hyping up as well. And again, I'm really glad that I enjoyed the experience. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 77 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new film and decide whether it is timeless. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you guys later.